This is Blues Power. Let's have a party! Come on, everybody!
So we're back now with training log number 11. So we had another pretty solid week this week. It's probably the last week where we're going to have the kind of full-on intensity and volume. Now we're going to start to drop it back off from next week in the lead up to Ironman Australia. So we've got 3 more weeks of training now after this one we've just done. So we're sort of really just hit the pinnacle, I guess, of training. So all in all this week, it was another pretty solid week, just above 20 hours. I think it was 21 hours and 10 minutes total to be exact. Of that, we had 3.5 hours in the pool, so about 13K in the pool. We had about 10.5 hours riding, so 332 kilometers on the bike, and about 6.5 hours running, so 75 kilometers of running. All in all, that takes us to 21 hours this week, which is pretty solid. That was broken up as 4 swims, 5 rides, and 4 runs, plus that strength session we always do. Of those 4 swims, 3 of those were pretty endurance focused this week, and one of them was, a hard swim with some threshold efforts. So 3 swims focusing on endurance, we're picking that up at the moment. That's really the key focus with our swim sets. In the rides, we had, of those 5, there was 2 thresholds, 2 of a moderate to easy intensity, and then we had that 1 weekly long ride that we always do. And of the 4 runs, there was 2 that were sort of upper aerobic, where we did a few efforts at that upper aerobic, almost threshold. We had 1 brick off the bike, and then the typical Sunday long run was the other run we had. Now, the session I do want to focus on this week is probably the Tuesday strength session, only because I did mention it last week as something that I credit with keeping me injury-free as I've built up my volume reasonably quickly to 20 hours a week. I think that including a strength session, at the moment we're doing 1 a week, but up until a few weeks ago we were doing 2 of these a week, and I think that's what's really kept me injury free in the lead up to Ironman. So we'll jump in and have a look at that session this week, which is typically about 45 minutes. I'll often go to the gym and do it. Sometimes I can do it at home if I don't need any weights, but this week what we did is we started off with, as we always do, about 5 minutes of warming up. Now this week I did some skipping, but sometimes I'll do either skipping or I might jump on the treadmill and go for a quick 5-minute jog. And I'll do that in those minimalist shoes I've talked about before. So shoes with no support, you're essentially running barefoot and you're just drilling really good technique, I guess, in that 5 minutes where you're just practicing being up on your toes, really good form, and it's strengthening all the tendons and ligaments and whatever it is in your feet. So skipping's about the same sort of thing, just constant good endurance for the calves, good elasticity, I guess it would build in your Achilles. But once that warm-up's done, we jump into some weights. So what we did this week was we did 3x4 RDLs, so Romanian deadlifts. So really trying to work on a bit of strength in the hamstrings. So one thing that does, I suppose, is a weakness in a lot of runners is their hamstrings. And for me especially, I have really tight hamstrings. So building up some strength there, that's an area that I really don't want to get injured. So we did 3x4 RDLs, pause and explode. So go down pretty slow and explode up. So you're trying to give yourself a bit of explosive power. The next exercise we would do is 3x30 second each leg split squat ISO hold. So quite a mouthful, but essentially you drop down into a lunge and you just hold it there. So what you're really working on with this one is like a stabilizer more than anything. So you're keeping your legs steady in that one position. Once you drop down into that lunge, you'll notice your knee wants to rock left, right. So when you go into this position, you're really building those stabilizer muscles around your legs, as well as obviously, your quads, glutes, hamstrings that are gonna hold you there. It's also that stability of actually holding that position. From there, you'd move into 3x15 single leg glute bridges. So this one's a bit of explosive power for your glutes, obviously very important for cycling and running. From there, I just did some bands. So basically just threw the bands around and just did, I suppose it's sort of some lateral walks up and back. So a good one again, just to strengthen the stabilizer muscles in your hips. And that's a really good one for keeping you true while you run, and it's definitely going to help with injury prevention. And then the final sort of exercise we had on the legs was 30 seconds single leg bent leg calf hold. So just trying to, when you move forwards, I suppose that's isolating your soleus more than it is your actual calf. So that's another pretty good one to strengthen your Achilles, prevent any running injuries like that. And then after that, we just had some core exercises. So I think from memory, I just did some planks, side planks, and then they're called like windscreen wipers or something. So just some core specific exercises to re-quote something my coach has said in the past, and I have mentioned on the training log, but he always says you should do core work as if your run depends on it, because it does. So that's really my main focus there. I'm trying to think of which muscles I'm going to be using the most while running, and it's typically those stabilizer muscles and then the windscreen wipers, because I suppose your legs do rock a bit side to side while you run. That's why I sort of picked those exercises. But that's the main essence of the Tuesday strength session. It's just your basic strength, bit of explosive power, but as much as anything, I find it to be a really good injury prevention set. So keeping yourself strong, that's going to stop any niggles, and that's why I think I've been able to jump up to this sort of volume without too much experience in the past of training. But if we jump into the full week now, we can start off on Monday, where we just had a 4K swim. So for that one, we did essentially, it was like a few 600s, a few 200s, some 100s. So kind of that middle distance endurance set. If I look at the splits now, I was pretty happy to hold, for the first 600, 142 pace, and then we did obviously some faster 50s, and then the 200s around the low 140s. And then moving on to just your Monday afternoon, just the typical 1 hour easy spin. So absolutely no stress on this one. I'm literally just trying to flush out the legs, pump some blood around. There's really no training benefit on there. Average heart rate 119 beats, average power 140 watts. So really chill, really relaxed. Which takes us to Tuesday now. So this is where we get to hit some good intensity on the bike, with the typical 9x6 minutes. With 2 minutes off, so that's 9x6 minutes at 260 watts. Exactly the same workout as we did last week. Pretty much the same, I would say, perceived effort. So it's good to get another one of those done now. The fact that I can bang those out pretty consistently, even after a pretty solid week, that's quite a relief. And then obviously on Tuesday we had that strength session, which we've already run through. Now, Wednesday morning, we just had a 3.2 kilometre swim. Now, I do often increase the mileage on the swims, but this week I just wanted to back that off just a touch. So we ended up with 13K because I did feel like my shoulders were getting a little fatigued after we took it from, we were doing 10Ks every week for like 6 weeks straight or something like that, and then I bumped it up to about 15. Just trying to manage it a bit there. I don't want to keep pushing it too hard, certainly not this close to the race anyway. But for that 3.2K swim, the main set, we just had a 1K rep and an 800. For the 1K, I think the watch had an error, I accidentally stopped it at 900, but my total time for that, so my total time for the 1 kilometre was 16:59, so that's pretty good, holding in the 140s there. I'm pretty happy with that for the 1K effort. And then just onto Wednesday afternoon, we just had that typical, it's a semi-long run, it's kind of a middle distance run, it's 22Ks. With some upper aerobic work, so you do your 10-minute warm-up, and then there's 3K at a medium effort, so that's kind of half marathonish pace. I think I was shooting for around 430s to 445s. An hour moderate, so that's your cruisy all-day pace, and then we just did, after that, we did 2 miles at that medium effort again. So, it starts off upper aerobic, hour really steady, upper aerobic, cool down and done. So works out to be some good volume with some, really sweet spot intensity, I guess, if you were to refer to it in a cycling term. And that takes us to Thursday's bike. So Thursday morning, typical workout, 10x3 minutes at 300 watts. We've done it for the last few weeks in a row. Again, it's one that I feel pretty strong on because I guess 300 watts is a bit of a mental barrier as far as, wow, that's actually a lot of watts, but look, we're getting pretty used to it now. 10x3 minutes. It was pretty hard, heart rate got up pretty high, but we got that one done. And then Thursday lunch, we just ducked down to the pool on the lunch break, did a quick 1.7K swim. For that one, it was broken up as a 1K, a 500 and a 200. So that one was done in the wetsuit as well. I just chucked the wetsuit on for the 1K. I was pretty happy with that because with the wetsuit on, I averaged 137 per 100 for the 1 kilometre. So that one was done in 16 minutes and 9 seconds. So considerably quicker than the Monday swim when we didn't have a wetsuit on. The Wednesday swim without a wetsuit. So that's pretty good. Goes to show how much of an improvement having a wetsuit on makes. And then Thursday afternoon, just an 80-minute moderate ride. So really cruisy, holding around 170 watts for that ride. Nothing too hard there, average heart rate 133. And then if we jump to Friday, so Friday morning, we just had, this is kind of our threshold set in the pool where we did 20 by 50 and 10 by 100. So, I mean, we took 10 seconds rest in between the 50s and 15 seconds in between the 100s. So close to doing those 50s on a minute and doing the 100s on close to 2 minutes. A little under those times, but more or less that's about what it was. And then Friday afternoon, we just had a typical 15K run. We did 20 minutes at a moderate intensity, 5 rounds of 3 minutes at that medium, so you know, your upper aerobic. Then we did 4 rounds of 1 minute mad, so that's basically all out, hard as you can go for a minute without compromising form or technique. And yeah, all in all, that took us to the 15K mark, where with the warm-up, cool down, and all the rest in between, we averaged 5:06 per kilometre. So that's a pretty good set to get in on a Friday. I do find it's kind of a good one to pre-fatigue your legs as well for a Saturday ride. So if we jump to the Saturday long ride now, this week it was 5 hours, so that's down a bit on the previous weeks where we've had it at 6 hours, but we have had a few, I guess you'd say, speed bumps over the last couple Saturday long rides where my rear derailleur fell off, or I was just completely exhausted a couple of weeks ago, and then we had a rest week. So it's been a while since we've actually done a 6 hour ride, and then this week was 5 hours. But within that 5 hours, we had 4 rounds of 40 minutes at race effort, so that's about 200 watts for me. That's what I was trying to keep it at. I just did that one on a loop. It's about a 20K loop, which takes me about 40 minutes to get around. And that one's pretty similar elevation, a bit more than Port Macquarie. It's probably a little bit of a slower road if I want to make an excuse than Port Macquarie, but shot around that one 4 times basically is my 4 by 40 minutes. If we look at the entire ride, we had average power around 180 watts and average speed 30.5 kilometers. So that's obviously, you know, the 4 by 40 minutes we were doing at 200 watts, but plenty of rest in between and pretty cruisy thereafter. Practice full nutrition on that one again as well, just to hone that in. So I'm just going Gatorades, and then I've got the optional gels with 2 salt capsules per hour, which I think is about 400 milligrams of sodium. So my sort of nutrition plan is to rely on the Gatorade on the course. Obviously I'll start the bike with plenty of Gatorade on there, but that's my theory. If I can use Gatorade that's on the course, at least I'd have to stress less about packing all my own nutrition and getting that exactly right. Not that I do want to rely on what's out on the course. But then after the bike, straight into a 30-minute brick session. So just off the bike, we did 20 minutes at race effort, and then we just did 10 minutes pretty easy. So race effort was a little under 5 minutes per kilometre, and then we just did 10 minutes at a pretty cruisy warm down pace. Felt pretty strong on that one, so after a 5 hour ride and a 30-minute run, felt pretty comfortable, which is a great sign, obviously, and considering too, it's been a pretty solid week, and we're sort of really at the peak of training. It's in there's a good couple months of fatigue, I guess, build up. So that's a good sign. And then Sunday's long run, so last session of the week, 32 kilometre long run, average pace, 5:16 per kilometre, done on that typical course that I do where it's like all uphill, all downhill, post the elevation up because it's quite interesting, but that's a really good one to strengthen the legs. Although after this week, I think now over the next 3 weeks, I'm going to try and do a lot of running on pretty flat ground. Now I've kind of built that base of strength by running on the hills. I want to get a bit more specific to the Ironman Australia course and run on some flat ground because that's what the race is going to be done on. So get a bit more experience on that there now. One thing that is interesting, after I finished that long run, I had a previous activity on Strava from 12 months ago where I actually ran the Newcastle Marathon, and I was an absolute rookie when it comes to running, even more so than I am now. And it's really interesting to compare the paces and the heart rate between those two. So if we go back 12 months, actually if we look at this, today's long run, so that one was 2 hours and 50 minutes, so 32 kilometers, average pace around 5:15 per kilometer. And the average heart rate for that was about 148 beats per minute over the full 2 hours and 50 minutes. If we jump back a year and we check out what I did a marathon in 12 months ago, so this is an all-out marathon race where I averaged 5:33 per kilometre. So I finished the marathon in 3 hours and 55 minutes, but my average heart rate was 172 beats per minute. So it's 24 beats higher than it was today, and the pace was 15 seconds per kilometre slower. So that is a pretty good sign of some improvement, though it was, you know, slow and steady, and it's a whole year of training. It does go to show that I am actually somewhat improving when it comes to running. That's like running at threshold for 4 hours, man, I could not imagine doing that now. 172 beats per minute would be pretty painful. So we'll see how we go on race day in Port Macquarie, what kind of pace I can pull out for the Ironman, because I haven't been able to really go all out on any runs, you know, longer than 10 or 15 kilometers for a while. So it's going to be interesting to see what we can do a full marathon in off the bike. But that's pretty much it for this week. So after this, it's going to start to back off a little bit. We keep some intensity next week, but by and large, a lot of the volume drops out. So the long ride's going to be down to like 100K, but it's a 100K time trial. So that's kind of the sort of things we've got to install next week. We drop out a lot of the easy, I guess, junk or waste mileage, you call it. Keep it pretty specific. And from then on, the taper will start. So next week we might have a bit of a chance to look back over some of the workouts we've gone through previously and note a bit of progression. That might be an interesting thing to look at. But all in all, I'm pretty keen to start to really dial it in, very specific, and we're actually backing off a lot of that volume now in the lead up to Ironman Australia. So should be starting to feel good. Looking forward to race day.